Boom, boom, boom. Hello, hello, hello. Hopefully we are good to go. Let me make sure I'm live. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but what's up? What's up, Derek? What's up, Elwood? How you guys doing? Combine pretty much underway. They haven't, it's on TV now. I'm kind of watching it off to the side here, but lots of stuff happening. Okay, we are live. Cool. A lot of like the measurements people have been measuring in, some very surprising measurements that I want to go over. We'll also discuss some of the I think they're literally about to start the 40 pretty soon, which will be interesting to see everyone's numbers come in. But a lot of guys, like, I feel like there were so many guys that came in like 20 to 25 pounds under expected, which was pretty surprising. You don't see that a ton. Like, obviously there's always disparities because teams typically, on their sites, give their guys a little bit of a boost, but it was even like more extreme this year than I feel like ever. Go here. Let me fix this real quick. Okay. But yeah, so let's start with the Dolphins like meetings, because that is, it's not something to put like crazy stock into. It's something to definitely keep note of, because I looked it up last year, like all the people the Dolphins had meetings with, and I believe the only one, I looked at a couple different sources, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I looked it up, and I believe the only one that the Dolphins had like an official meeting with, like usually they meet with every player, but some of it's like informal, in passing. I believe the only official one they had from last year that they drafted was Patrick Paul. Everyone else, there was no like official meeting out there, so all these could be something. The Dolphins are a team that typically end up like kind of switching it up. Like there's been years where like a lot of the people they've drafted, they met with, and there's been years like they hadn't met with anyone that they drafted. And then there were some big names in this cup that they've talked to, like at least that have been confirmed so far. Like Malachi Starks was one, and he had some good things to say that he met with the Dolphins. Tyler Warren said he met with the Dolphins. These are obviously some of the top guys. I believe there was also like Shamar Stewart. Michael Williams was another one who said he met with the Dolphins. Clemson tight end Jake Brenningstool said he met with Miami, which is an interesting one because I'm not to me, he's more of a receiving tight end that I'm not super interested in, but it is always nice to know who you're kind of like looking at. Can be potentially different guys. I know Starks said his meeting went great. A lot of the guys said a lot of the same thing about McDaniel, either that he's like, a smart offensive mind, or he's, very unique, funny guy. I mean, I feel like McDaniel definitely does if there's one thing to give McDaniel credit for, I feel like a lot of the young guys definitely like him. He makes a good first impression, I feel like, for most of these guys. Also, the salary cap raise, I don't know if you guys saw that. Officially, the salary cap is at $279.2 million. Got to throw out there. And I also know a lot of the guys aren't testing. Dolphins also met with Will Johnson, another big name, Michael Williams, Shamar Stewart. These are just some names Miami has kind of met with so far that we know of. There's still some things. I think they also met with Ollie Gordon, the running back from Oklahoma State. I feel like for the most part, like Dolphins are meeting with a lot of the top guys that I feel like we've all kind of talked about at 13, which is interesting. So I wonder if it will, go in a different direction. Yeah, there's a lot of weights that we're going to go through the measurements here pretty soon. I can go through. Also, yeah, Trey Smith. Trey Smith was just franchise tagged by the Chiefs, which I didn't think the Dolphins would be interested in him anyways, but it's just kind of, indicative of where the guard market is going to head. Don't do that. Especially if it's Tyler Warren. I believe the Dolphins are around like 9-10 million under the cap, but they can still create a lot more. I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe I read somewhere they're around like 9 to 10 in cap right now. And they obviously have, I'm sure there will be moves in the coming days because they have to potentially make moves. They might not make moves. They might wait until like they get some signings to then be like, okay, once we've confirmed these signings, now we can go, around and make some stuff. Yeah. Let me go back here. Oh yeah, it looks like they're starting. I'm looking at this guy from Maryland. I haven't even heard of him. Don't know how to pronounce his name, but he is currently about to start running. Thank God. Let's see. We'll, get into some of those. But dude, some people, I want to talk about, let me just scroll. Mason Graham. Mason Graham came in pretty light. And he had like pretty short arms. Now, I went back and looked at chop measurements, and chop, the Dolphins, I think it's good to notice that the Chop Robinson's like arm length was in the 5th percentile of edge defenders. So I think that shows that the Dolphins are willing to draft guys that maybe are a little bit, lack length if they make up for it in other areas. Like obviously Chop makes up for it with his athleticism, and he's not the biggest guy. So I think the Dolphins are willing, at least up front on the defense side of the ball, to look past certain measurements. I do think they like guys with great measurements, but if they have other traits, I still think they're willing to take them. I think Graham is one that, like, if Graham falls to 13 because of his lack of measurements, I'd still be looking at it pretty heavily. Because I think he was listed at like 320 on Michigan's site, but he came in. Let me find the numbers here. I know I have it saved somewhere, but I believe it was like 290 something, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, 296. So he came in listed at 6'3", 6'3" and like a half, I believe, and then 296, and his arm length was 32, which is on the lower end for guys. So that's kind of, I think that's something that could hurt him. And he's not testing until the pro day, because I think a lot of these guys have like minor injuries. But most of these D-line don't have crazy length. Some of them obviously do. Like Walter Nolan, similar size, actually, very similar to Mason Graham. And I see them both as kind of like explosive 3-techs. I think Graham is the guy that like clearly is more consistent, but Nolan probably has like the higher explosive ceiling. Oh, Darius Alexander just ran a 4.96. Alexander, that is interesting. I think that's not too bad for a guy of his size. He has some interesting measurements as well. Deion Walker obviously came in at crazy measurements: 6'7", 330, 34 and a 1/4 inch arms, which is really good length. Shamar Stewart was one that was interesting because he's 6'5", 267. He weighed 281 at the Senior Bowl, so he lost 14 pounds in like a month, and he has over 34-inch arms. He's a guy that I think has a huge chance to raise his stock, like a huge chance. The other Texas A&M guy, I actually think him losing it was actually a good thing, because he was listed at like 280 on Texas A&M site, and he's now at 257, which I actually think is good for him, because when he played at last year before he transferred to A&M, he weighed around this weight and he looked much better in my opinion. Michael Williams, good measurements: 6'5", 260, 34 and 3/8. That's good length, good stuff to work off of. Graham was who I meant, sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember seeing Grant's weight, but yeah, that makes more sense. I like Warren, but we have so much other needs. I'll say this, Dolphins fan for life. It's still very early in the process. Like, so many things can change. We haven't even hit free agency yet. And I mean, I've talked about it. I think a wide tight end is one of the biggest needs the Dolphins have. That's why, like, I probably prioritize it over most, because I don't think most people see it as big of a need as I do. But after watching a ton of film, man, it was rough how bad the wide tight end position was for Miami last year. Yeah, definitely. I know Mike Green came in. He's not testing. James Pierce had, I think, solid numbers for what was expected. Nothing too crazy there. I think this was really Donovan Ezeriku. He came in at 6'2", 248, which I think is solid for him. But he had 34-inch arms, which for his like explosiveness and bend, 34-inch arms is really good for him. That's a really solid number. Jalen Walker, the linebacker / edge. Now he's interesting because 6'1", so very short, 243 and only 32-inch arms. I still think the Dolphins will be potentially interested in him. I think he will be someone they like. Actually, not. I mean, he's obviously not like the same size as Chop, but Chop and him have like similar sized arm length. But he also is more of a linebacker. If he was listed as a linebacker, these are like solid numbers for like a pure off-ball linebacker. But for a guy that's like potentially playing edge, he's like in the low percentiles for that. But I think his film shows better edge film than it does off-ball linebacker. So that'll be interesting to see. Like Jahad Campbell came in pretty underweight, but I think some of these guys lost weight to potentially test better, which, we'll see. Darius Alexander was like about 6'4", a little under 6'4", 305, 34-inch arms. That's good size for him as well. And he just ran under a 5, which you like to see. One of the biggest, man, Alfred Collins, man. This is one of my favorite D tackles in class. Alfred Collins at 6'5" and 5/8, 332. and then 34 and 5/8 arms. Really, Jamari Caldwell just ran a 5.17. Pretty slow, but I mean, kind of expected not to run super well. I don't think the 40, I think the initial 10-yard split is more important than the 40 yards for defensive linemen. But Alfred Collins, man, this guy holds his weight well at 6'5", 332. I think he's one of the best run defenders in the class. Kenneth Grant was 6'3", 5/8, 331, 33.5-inch arms. Those are solid numbers. Another one that I want to talk about, where's Schlesinger? Cam Jackson had pretty good weight as well. I remember talking about this. I remember saying Omar Lott was undersized just because I thought he looked undersized on tape, but when I looked up his measurements, they weren't that small, at least listed for Tennessee. But he did come in pretty undersized. He's right under 6'2", 291, 33 and 3/4 arms, which is good arm length for him. Aeneas Peebles came in really undersized, only weighing 282. JJ Pegues 309. I'm excited to see how they test. Josh Farmer just ran a 5.14. Darius Alexander has the best time so far at 4.96, which I think is huge for him. Where is Schlesinger? I had Schlesinger somewhere here. He is definitely a guy to watch out for because he was he was listed at 225 on the UCLA site. He checked in today at 242, so I want to see how he runs, because if he put on weight and still runs well, because he was so athletic on film, one of my favorite linebackers for Miami to potentially targets. But yeah. Is Alex Collins the second round? Alfred Collins, and I do believe Alfred Collins is a potential second round guy. I think the measurements are there. I think he's one of the pure best run defenders in the class, especially at the D line. Walker is tied to Greer. I'm not sure Walker transits well immediately. Yeah, I think it would be an interesting transition. It might not translate right away for him. Derek Harmon's running. I want to see this, actually. Okay, never mind. He's redoing it. Peebles will be Dolphins' next fullback. It might be Pegues. Pegues is the one to watch for. Pegues is... I have the thing here. Let me actually... there's some people that are training at 2 different spots. Because, let's see, where was that? There was 5 or so players that... Yeah, so right here. Prospects that were requested by NFL teams to do on-field drills at alternate positions. So Notre Dame D-tackle Howard Cross and Ole Miss D-tackle JJ Pegues were also doing some fullback cross-training. So that will be interesting to watch them in drills. Savion Williams. I said this in the stream, literally... When was the last stream I did? Was it a couple days ago? Savion Williams is doing drills at running back as well, which is nice. Derek Harmon ran a 4.97. That guy is also another potential round 2 option if he even makes it there. That guy's a freak. But Savion Williams might do some drills at running back. And then Brashard Smith and Marcus Yarns, SMU running back and Delaware running back, are doing receiver drills. Those are 2 players I think Miami will just be interested in because they are kind of in the A-Chan sort of type of player. You know, running backs that can play receiver, very explosive, very fast. But they're probably day 3 guys, and I feel like, Dolphins are going to spend high resources on that position. But if there's day 3 and they fall, Delaware, Marcus Yarns, I'm going to make a video on him. And I already made a video on Brashard Smith, the other guy. Both running backs that are very good receivers. I'm very excited to see them do drills. Underrated. Yeah, both are guys. I know Brashard Smith has played receiver. Marcus Yarns, I haven't looked it up, but I watched his film the other day, and it looks like he's played receiver because he has some really good reps running routes. Do I think we move on from Angled? Probably not, unless I don't think they're gonna go into free agency looking for a fullback. I feel like the only way they would move on from Angled is if they found someone that they think could be a full-time fullback that's young and could take over, and I don't know if they're gonna go in that direction. At least I'm not guessing they will. Tyleik Williams, another guy that came in pretty big, just under 6'3", but 334 pounds. 32-inch arms, so pretty short arm length, which is interesting. Jordan Birch was one that I thought would be a little bit bigger, but he was 6'4", 279, 33-inch arms, but I thought he was going to be a crazy-sized guy. There's some interesting measurements there. I would save the money in the roster. I mean, it's definitely possible. Scotty, I think Savion is doing receiver drills, but he was also requested to do some running back drills, so I think he's doing both. because he's taken obviously wildcat snaps, and yes, he's not this. He has the size of a receiver, but he has this place. He has the skill set of a running back. Like he doesn't know how to play receiver. Hopefully he can learn, but he's a guy that you're going to try to give touches and, versatile, and then give him schemed up touches like he's a running back, but not like pure handoffs, things like that. But he is going to do some running back drills. At least that's what's being reported. Yeah, some guys definitely came in lighter. I think like Michael Williams had pretty good measurements, like his percentile. Most of it was in like the 80th percentile. Shamar Stewart being down 14 pounds is kind of crazy from a month later. But Mason Graham's a big one, man. He came in lighter than expected and had short arms. And he's not testing until his pro day because of the injury. I feel like I think he still should go before 13. Like, film is king, bro. Like, take all of this stuff with a grain of salt. But if he falls to 13, I'm taking him all day. Like, here's the Jalen Walker measurements. I have it shout out Trevor Sycamore. But if it was as an edge, his height would be 2nd percentile, his weight would be 6th percentile, his arm length would be 5th percentile, and his hands would be 79th percentile. If it was as an off-ball linebacker, it would be 30th percentile, 63rd percentile, 37th percentile, and then hands would be 90th percentile. So it would be a lot more fitting as a linebacker, like just based on his measurements. But based on the film, he plays better at edge. So he's a very intriguing guy. Damn. Albert Collins has an 85-inch wingspan. Don't you think that focusing on technique in addition to that is important? For example, Jackson is a great athlete, but questionable technique. Well, I'm not sure what Jackson you're talking about, but I do agree that it is more important to like to me, the combine is only a small part of the equation. It's actually, I think, more important for teams to actually think it's more important to like do like measurements for them and like just talk to people and do interviews and like just make sure people are healthy and that's what the combine is really most important for these teams. I think they like to see how well they test and how well they move in person. But at the end of the day, that's just a small part of the picture. Like, film is key. It's way more important, like how, they play the position. Oh, Aeneas Peeble's about to run. He has to run fast here. I really am looking forward to what his 10-yard split is, because he came in at like 280, and he's got to be really explosive. So this is huge for Peebles. Definitely think he's about to take off here. Hopefully he doesn't mess it up. So, but come on, Peebles. Okay. I think he's not gonna. Okay, so he ran a 4.95. That's in 1.74. Terrion Ingram Dawkins ran a 4.86. Damn. It's not crazy, but it's good to run under a 5, I think, for a guy of his size. Pegues about to run. Do you think that technique is important? Well, yeah, I think, Austin Jackson. Yeah, I mean, Jackson does have questionable technique. I think it depends on like the position and stuff like that, and like how much you can get away with it, and like where your technique struggles. Because typically Jackson's technique kind of struggles in pass protection when you have to do true pass sets, but he doesn't do a lot of true pass sets in Miami, so it doesn't matter as much. Pegues not gonna run super fast. Damn. Yeah, 5.16. I mean, that's not too bad. I don't care too much about. It's the 10-yard split, but his 10-yard split wasn't super crazy either. He's more known for like his body control and balance. He still makes people miss. Honestly, to run like not super fast when he does all of the other stuff with the ball in his hands, it's actually pretty wild. Yeah, Ty Robinson's about to watch him. Yeah, I think looking at clearly, I think like you can kind of see how the Dolphins feel like with their measurements. If you look at other guys, like last year, Patrick Paul, crazy measurements, right? Ty Robinson ran pretty well there. 4.83. That's pretty good. What was I about to say? But yeah, measurements at like tackle. I feel like Dolphins at tackle, they really like to have some of that athletic technique. They think they can potentially coach some technique in you. And they're willing to take, like, even Chop Robinson wasn't, the most technically ready guy, but they still went after him. But he had different types of measurements. He was maybe limited. He wasn't the biggest guy. Like, he was on the shorter side. He had very limited arm length, but they took him for his athletic ability and how they could work that out. So I think they value athleticism more than potentially size. And then when you get both, they'll take that too at tackle. Like, I think on the interior line, they're very willing to take guys who maybe don't have the craziest measurements, but so it's something to definitely take note of. But yeah, good stuff there. Let's have. Let me grab my phone real quick. Yeah, so the Dolphins met with some players. They met with, like, because we talked about it, was Tyler Warren, Malachi Starks, Willow Johnson, Shamar Stewart, Micah Williams, all names that we think the Dolphins could potentially consider at 13. And I feel like the Dolphins usually don't meet with a lot of the top guys like that. So I wonder what maybe they're trying to throw it off and they'll go after someone that they never even met with, or they're just trying to meet with everyone who's an option, get a good feel for, that group, and still don't make it like super obvious who you want to go after, because then you met with everybody. But yeah, that's definitely interesting. I really just want to see how Schwessinger test. That's like probably what I'm most excited about. Nazir Stackhouse, 516, yeah. Yeah. Well, Piggy's he didn't run the best 40. I think he just ran like a 516 also, but I don't care too much about 40s, like the actual 40 time when it comes to D linemen, unless like they kind of like do something crazy. I think the 10-yard split is more important, because 10-yard split shows off like your acceleration, and really when you're a D lineman, you just want to have some good first step quickness. First step quickness is way more important than what your 40-yard dash is, because as a D lineman, you're never really running 40-yard dashes. Yeah. Well, hand size for QBs, you just don't want to be under like 9. Because if you're under 9, that's like super small. Other than that, then you're fine. But there is like definitely a threshold there. And then arm length, it depends. I've seen what's his arm length for OT, I actually think is becoming less important. But it depends how like good your technique is and how much you can limit that. Because I know people usually want 34-inch arms, but there is a lot of good offensive tackles that are under, like even under like around the 33 range. Even some kind of under 33. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I love me some Besh. But man, so I think 2 players that we talked about a little bit, but Shamar Stewart, Micah Williams. Edge defenders, I know maybe edge isn't the biggest need for the Dolphins, but I think the reason they're probably the edges, and Jalen Walker, if you consider him an edge, the reason that they, I think, are in play is, one, that they're kind of like the super athletes up front. One, Walker can give you, and they're all versatile. That's the thing, is Stewart and Micah Williams can give you potential D-line type of reps. They can play as a 5, a 4-eye. They can do some interior type work. So it's not like they're just only would be out there as pure edge defenders. They actually have experience. They have the size to do some in the interior type work. They're not like, obviously pure 1 techs, 3 techs, that type of thing. CJ West just ran pretty well. That's, I think, 173 10-yard split's not that bad. 495 overall. And I do like CJ West as well. But I think Stewart and Williams, they're not my favorite options, really. Like, I would prefer to go other directions, but I think people are going to be high on them. I would take Stewart over Williams if I had to pick one of them over the other. And I know there's definitely production issues with both, but if you do watch the film, I think scheme plays a big part with Stewart. They asked him to read and react a lot, and they don't allow him to like purely disrupt, but he does have some very good physical traits to work with, and I feel like the Dolphins will like him. It's just, I'm just hoping for a different direction in the first round. Because also they're not, if they were BPA, I would go there, but for me, I don't think they're going to end up being best player available. But they could be for the Dolphins. Are you concerned about offensive tackle? I feel like Paul struggles in O-line, struggles in pass protection. I've talked about it. I'm not really concerned about the O-line when it comes to pass protection, really. I think that's probably one of the more over talked about things when it comes to Miami is the pass protection stuff. Yeah, having better pass protectors maybe would be allow you to be a little more scheme versatile in certain situations, but I don't think the Dolphins are going to really change their scheme. They do a lot of play action. They get rid of the ball very quickly. They do a lot of jump setting. They do a lot of full slide protections. It's very rare for the Dolphins to have like true one-on-one pass. Like if the Dolphins were a different team, if they were not in a Shanahan style system, I'd be very worried about the Dolphins tackles and even Brewer at center, who I made a video on today. I'd be much more concerned with Dolphins and pass pro. I'm more concerned with Dolphins run game, and I think that starts with the guards and wide tight end. I think the Dolphins tackles can move well on space and can be physical. I think the center can do the same thing. They're definitely outside zone. They can make a difference. But realistically, the Dolphins have true pass sets less than any other team in the league, so it's not that big of a concern, I think, for them compared to most teams. I hope Miami takes Mike Green. Personally, I don't want Mike Green. Too off, like he's had two potential, like he's been accused of sexual assault one time in high school and one time in college. I really don't want anything to do that. It's two different occasions. And he doesn't have great measurements. Edge is already not a crazy need for the Dolphins anyways. I do like his film, but I personally hope they don't go in that direction. Yeah, Harmon ran well. Harmon is a good player in this class. And his film, if you watch his film in like order, because sometimes I don't really go in order, but I remember I knew some of his early games that I watched, and I knew some of his later games. Man, he was very, he just kept improving, and he's got really good stuff. Do you like the two Georgia guards in this draft? I think Tate Ratledge is a solid player. I would consider Ratledge like late day 2, early day 3. I know some people like him in the second, but that's a little high for me. I haven't really spent much time watching the other Georgia guard. Yeah. Oh, I love Jahdae Barron. If you listen to his interview, Jahdae Barron is clearly a very smart player. I think Barron's is a great scheme fit for the Dolphins. I think Barron is one of the best fits for Miami, and I think he's just a plug and play starter. I think some of the other guys are not. I think other guys could be contributors. Like some of these edges that we talked about, I don't think they would technically plug and play and start, but I think they would contribute in like a rotation. I think Barron would be plug and play, start right away. Very intelligent player, very versatile too, which is big. And yeah, this D-line class is so good. Kind of just. Yeah. I have Barron ranked like 11th. So I'm very high on Jahdae Barron. Probably one of my favorite players in this class. This is a weak class. People are going to have people around in that like 10 to 12 range that are a little bit surprising. Let me see. Boom, boom, boom. Trying to look, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it wasn't the best 10-yard split for Harmon, but the 40-yard split would be 82nd percentile, which is obviously pretty nice. But I would prefer a better 10-yard split. Yeah, the JJ Pegues times are, I guess, maybe a little concerning. But Milroe had very small hands. Yes, he did. Also Milroe's not. How do you feel about the Ohio State O-line and D-line in the draft? I think Josh Simmons, purely based on film, their left tackle is the best O-lineman in the class. But he has a very serious knee injury, so I wouldn't consider him. I think Donovan Jackson is also one of my favorite offensive linemen to watch in this class. Versatile, can play guard, tackle. Big fan of him, I think, as a fit for Miami. I just think, unfortunately, he's going to be one of the guys that goes in between your first and second. So you're probably not going to get Donovan Jackson. The other O linemen haven't spent too much time on. D line, I like Tyleik Williams. If you want like a one tech that can stop the run. And then their edges, I prefer JT Tuimoloau over Jack Sawyer. I don't know if you guys saw Jack Sawyer's measurements, but he probably had one of the most disappointing measurements with his arm length, because he had like 31 something inch arms, which is really, really short. And also, I didn't love his film. I think JT has a better chance of contributing than Sawyer. Go there. Crazy stuff. It will be interesting to see, because we were already hearing reports before the combine that teams might have Mason Graham not as high. So I wonder if he'll end up falling. I just feel like, I don't know, man. Even though there's those reports, I would still be pretty surprised, even though anything can happen in the NFL draft. It's just this class. I feel like it's not good enough for Graham to fall down to 13. Like, there's not enough good players at the top for him to be pushed out, even if he doesn't have the greatest measurements. Like, if there was other guys, maybe it was a strong class and they would decide to go a different direction. But, man, I just don't see it. Yeah. I think Darius Alexander had a pretty good time. Because someone was talking earlier about like needing Calais Campbell type. Darius Alexander would be one of the guys in this class that would be that type of player where he can play inside, outside. He has that type of film and he has that length. He has good reps at both positions, so he can be one of those versatile guys. That's where I think the Dolphins should potentially look if they are going up front and they want to go more edge. Is that type of player that could potentially give you inside, outside reps, a little more versatility, so they can be on the field when you have guys out there like Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips. That's why I think they could potentially be interested in Shamar Stewart, even though he's more. I think Alexander's more of a D tackle that can play edge, and Stewart's more of a edge that could potentially play interior stuff. Does Deion Walker climb into the first round? I guess it's how well he interviews, honestly. There's always a potential. Personally, I wouldn't do that, but you never know. In this draft, I think anything's possible. Brett Coleman said, talk to Jahdae Barron today. That's a pro's pro. His language is ball. Top 15 lock, in my opinion. Interesting. Top 15, you say? I don't see it. You don't see what? Are you talking about the Deion Walker one? Or what I said? Because personally, I ain't touching Deion Walker. I wouldn't even take Deion Walker in the second. Project. I'm sure Weaver could get a lot out of him, but like I would, to me, there's players every year that like you're just not super confident in, and he's one of them. And like those are the types of players I'm just like, let someone else take a chance. I still think in those spots I can get a good player, so I might as well let someone else take a chance to make him into a good player. But I'm going to take someone else that I already think is a good player, even if their upside is slightly lower than Walker's. Unless Walker falls farther than expected, I'm not going to be on that. I have not heard anything about the Jonah Jackson stuff. Top CB prospects? Yeah, so after Will Johnson, it would be Jahdae Barron, Siobhan Ravel Jr., probably like Benjamin Morrison, Notre Dame kid. But Ravel, I think on film, I've said this, I think Siobhan Ravel on film, purely film, is a top 10 prospect in this class, like overall. But he did have I believe he tore his ACL. That's what it was. So he is, I think he'll be ready for the start of the season, but that torn ACL could push him down some people's boards. And then I really like Jahdae Barron, as we talked about. I think Jahdae Barron is a top 15 player in this class as well, like Coleman just said. Yeah. You want Harmon at 13? No, thank you. But I do like Derek Harmon. Yeah. I feel like Harmon would be more of a trade back option. Mentioned he would be okay trading for. I think it depends on what you would have to trade. Personally, I think the guard class is good enough, like in free agency, to where you don't need to trade for a guy like Jonah Jackson. And to me, it also is kind of telling that they run a similar scheme to Miami, and Jonah Jackson is getting pushed out. I don't know. I'd have to watch film. I know he was good in when he played for Detroit, but that was when they were running more of like the gap heavy stuff. I guess in Los Angeles they're running a lot of duo. Donovan Jackson, yeah. Oh yeah, Donovan Jackson in the second would be one of my top options for sure. It depends who else on the board, but I would see him. I don't think he's gonna make it. Let's see what Harmon runs. Yup. Free agency will tell everything. I really think they're gonna go all guard heavy in free agency. I think they're gonna try to get those positions taken care of. Come on, Harmon. Let's see what you're running here. I want to see what Harmon's 10-yard split is here. Last time. Alright, they didn't show the 10-yard split this time. He ran a faster 40 though, 4.95. Pretty good. He looks explosive though, good mover. Let's see. I don't even know this guy's SMU kid. I don't think I've watched him at all. But it is crazy. Like Jordan Birch, we talked about him a little bit, but on the Oregon side, he was listed at 6'6", 295, and then he comes to the combine as 6'4", 279. Like he's still big, especially for a guy that plays like edge / D lineman. He's another one of the versatile guys. He kind of reminds me of like what Darius Robinson was sort of last year from Missouri. You really think a guy like Savonai won't go top of the second? I mean, it's possible, but like I don't watch Savonai and think like, oh, he's one of the top of the second round guys. I think he's a solid guard, but I think guards that are typically not like insanely athletic don't end. I think usually the top of the second guards are like usually the top guards in the class end up going like early second, because a lot of guards usually don't even go day one. Like usually there is a run on guards in the top of the second. Like I do agree with that, but I don't know. I personally don't see Savonai in that type of group, and I don't know if the NFL will either. But who knows? Yeah, because I think Sav will probably be. I think he's more likely to be there than not. And I wouldn't even be surprised if teams are lower on him than expected. It also depends on what happens. I guess if there's like a late first run on guards, then maybe. But let me look at the list. Like I think we're gonna see like we'll probably see Booker go in like the 20s, something like that. Donovan Jackson, same area, like 20s ish range. And then after that, like I feel like we're gonna see like Gray Zabel probably go before him. Depends what these people have listed at. 'Cause some of these tackles and guards, like I think there's a chance, but maybe with the. I think a lot of the teams that pick early in the second round are the guys that are looking for guards, but I think they might be going after them in free agency. So it depends on how free agency plays out too, because some teams will draft for need, some will draft just BPA. Yeah. I would say it depends what prospects we're listing at guards. Like, am I considering like Banks and Campbell guards? Because I would have like Tyler Booker, Donovan Jackson, Zabel as like pure guards. And like Jackson can also play tackle. But like I would also put Banks and Campbell over him if they were playing guard. Then after that, I would probably be in the Savonai range. I haven't watched everyone yet. I'm trying to look for names. But yeah, he'd probably be in that range after that group. Membo is another one if you play him at guard. But I have Membo ranked like I have Membo ranked as like a top 15 player in the class, and he's like probably my favorite tackle for Miami. I don't know if I would rank him 1 overall. I as I said, I had Josh Simmons as the best O lineman, but I wouldn't draft Simmons at 13 because he is a one. I think he's a tackle only player, and two, he has a serious knee problem. So based on film, I'd have Simmons over Membo, but probably wouldn't take him over Membo like at that spot because of that injury. But I like Membo more than Banks, and I think I like him more than Will Campbell as well. What do you think of favoring scheme over talent? I just think it's more of a combo, because to me it's just situation matters. Like you can have like that's where it comes down to is like I think sometimes there's people that are very talented that just end up in the wrong scheme anyway. So I think it can go hand in hand a lot of times where like sometimes a very talented player just doesn't work out because he's not in the right scheme. So I think scheme really matters for everyone. Some players are like, there's like very rarely any players that are scheme proof. But I do think like you should draft the most talented players that fit your scheme. And then there's sometimes we're like, okay, this player's not the best scheme fit, but he's clearly the best player. That's when I think you go for like, okay, yes, this guy's clearly better than anyone else on the board, but he's not the greatest scheme fit. That's when you got to be able to figure out how to use him. Warren and Membo, yeah. Warren and Membo are definitely near the top for me. I like some of the corners as well at 13. I think those are guys who have potential, like Will Johnson. I think some of the D linemen that people like Kenneth Grant and Walter Nolan. Like I wouldn't take Walter Nolan. I would consider Kenneth Grant, but he would be one of my, like he'd be like my 5th or 6th option if I was choosing. If Mason Graham's there, obviously Mason Graham as well. That'd be crazy. Yeah, Pegues did not run super well. But honestly, sometimes I watch the combine and I actually like hope the players, and I don't really hope, like I'm not wishing they're like, sometimes I'm like, oh, it's not that bad that a player that I really like doesn't test that well, because that means sometimes they just fall a little bit farther. And I'm always down to take the guy that falls a little bit farther because they didn't run the best 40 time. Because especially at D lineman, like, do I really care if my D lineman ran a slow 40? If they look athletic on the film, I don't really care about his straight line long speed. See what Ty Robinson runs here. I think he has the fastest time so far. Another 4.8 but 4.89. Interesting. Carter. Oh yeah, Abdul Carter was there was reports of him, with the surgery. Seahawks have given safety Rayshawn Jenkins permission to seek a trade. And there's safety out there. I haven't watched Rayshawn Jenkins, so I don't know. I see this gas mask picture every time on Twitter. Membo, Will Johnson, or Tyler at 13. We have the pick right now. Oh God, that would really depend. Honestly, that would really depend on free agency, because I have all those 3 ranked very closely. I actually think I would I think for sure, especially if the Dolphins took care of O-line in free agency, I think Membo would probably be my last of those 3. And then I think it would depend. It would be Warren versus Johnson for me. And then what do I have them listed at? I think I have them with the exact same, like I have them basically stacked on with each other, so they're like right next to each other. I think it would depend. If the Dolphins needed corner badly, I guess I would go lean corner because it's a more premium position. But if they got another corner in free agency, I'd probably go Tyler Warren. Who's the big back you are wanting, Benny, in this draft? Probably Damian Martinez. I think would be a solid fit. You know, keep him in Miami. He's one of the most effective backs in the country when it comes to short yardage. I think he is the most, like, statistically, and it shows on the film as well. And I think he's kind of underrated. I think his explosiveness was better than I expected when watching his film, and he's listed very big, and he fits into that range. It's just I don't know where Martinez is going to go because I could see him going day 2 somewhere, but he's also a guy that sometimes, you know, running backs just, you know, fall in the draft. He could go day 3. At 13, Barron. I would go Membo probably if that was the case. It was Membo, Grant, Barron. And then I would think I would go Barron over Grant. That might be a hot take for people, but I just really like Jahdae Barron. Grant would make an impact as a run defender, but I think that's kind of where all his impact would be early on in his career, is only as a run guy. And to me, first round, I want a guy that's going to be a full impact player on every down. You also have to think, like, I haven't watched Rayshawn Jenkins, but when you see a Seahawks player, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that's someone to keep an eye on because that's the same scheme the Dolphins were running. We've taken a couple Seahawks players now that we just claimed that one guy who's just like probably a practice squad corner or whatever. But they also got Dodson, you know, Jordan Brooks came from Seattle the year before. I mean, that was before, you know, that, you know, coach went there, but they were, I think, looking at some similar players, and he could be another one. CJ West. Let's see what West runs right here. See, I really feel like if Schlesinger runs well at like this higher weight, man, he could really. I feel like Schlesinger could be one of the biggest raises of, like, he could raise his stock very high if he runs well. West running basically the same. Have you done any work on Jack Kaiser? Yeah, I have watched Jack Kaiser. I do like him as a late round linebacker option. Very smart. Like, he was like the leader of that Notre Dame defense. Very smart, physical player. I don't think he's the most fluid guy, most athletic guy in coverage, but I do think he has an understanding of where to be. Like, he understands like depth and leverage and like how to get in throwing lane. So I think he's a good feel. I just don't think he has the most athleticism. So I think he can spot drop, be effective there. He just seems like sort of that late round serviceable player that could potentially come in and, you know, be a depth guy for you. Oh, they're showing Mason Graham highlights. I just don't know how people can watch Mason Graham film and then think bad. Like, how do they not have him top 5 in this class? They're comparing him to Braden Fisk. He does have similar measurements to Braden Fisk, and Fisk had a good season. He was one of the Rams. He was one of the players top 5 in Defensive Rookie of the Year votings with Burse and Chop and the corners that were there. You think Sanders will come out of Ward, starts throwing well? That would be pretty funny. He's like, I'm coming out there. But no, I don't think he'd come running onto the field. They're interviewing Mason Graham, but I do not have the volume on, so no idea what he's saying. But I have heard he's a high character guy. Heard that about him. I think like Jahdae Barron, like I mentioned earlier, high character guy. I think like Starks as well. I'd go BPA given all our needs. I agree. Can you explain what Tyndall and Ezekama is on the roster. Well, I mean, well, Ezekama wasn't really on the roster. He was on the practice squad all year, but and then Tyndall, I do believe, should have been cut. I think it's just, one, they didn't want to give up on the guys that they drafted. And you said Greer struggles with the draft. I don't know. I don't think necessarily Greer has his moments. I think he's pretty hit or miss. I actually think he's probably middle of the pack when it comes to evaluating compared to most GMs, because some GMs are really bad. I don't think some people realize like they have some terrible misses, and he's had some bad misses. And actually, I think the whole disregarding the trenches thing isn't really true. I think they've had misses in the trenches, but I don't think they've disregarded it. I think they need to put more resources into the trenches. But since 2020, the Dolphins have actually drafted more O-linemen in the top 100. They're in like the top 8 teams of drafting O-linemen in the top 100 since 2020. I know like 3 of those were in one draft, but like also 2 drafts we barely had any top 100 picks in that time frame. So I think the Dolphins have tried to put resources in the draft. It's just they had misses like Liam Eichenberg. It's not like they didn't sign people in free agency. Like they went out and got Armstead, and they've signed players like Brewer and Connor Williams who were hits. They obviously drafted Robert Hunt early in the draft. They drafted Austin Jackson early in the draft. So I don't think it's that they've ignored it. I think they've just had some misses on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensive line, they haven't ignored. They've actually put a lot of resources, I think, into edge. And then D-line, they just always had Wilkins and Sealer, so they were always completely fine, at least for years. But, yeah. Can you imagine Mason? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mason Taylor. Mason also mentioned. He said he didn't meet with them at the combine, but he did mention he had extensive talks with the Dolphins at the Senior Bowl, which is interesting. I do like Mason Taylor in this class as a tight end. I think he's not the perfect fit, but he is one, I think, of the better fits. He can at least play some Y. I do like him. Yeah. I mean, he has a chance. I think I need to see who fills out the receiver roster. It depends who they pick up. I do think he's probably he has an outside chance right now, though. Like if I had to bet on it right now, I would say he probably wouldn't, but who knows? Yeah, we'll see about Drew Aller. I have my question marks, but I think there's question marks with everybody in this class. Everyone in the next class at QB. Like everyone has a big, like I think Drew Aller, and they all are like big question marks. Like there's like with Nussmeier, it's decision making. With it's Aller, it's his pocket like awareness and presence. Like to me, pocket awareness is so important, and I think Drew Aller has bad pocket presence. So if he doesn't start showing better movement and awareness in the pocket, then I will not be interested in Aller. But if he does develop, that's why these people go back. Like a lot of them need to develop. There's Nico from Tennessee. He needs to develop, but he has traits to work with. But they're all kind of in that sort of same boat right now. Anyone else missing Wilkins? Not for his price. No, I do love Wilkins, but I think it was correct to let him go. Oh, they're doing drills now. This guy does not look very fluid, but they are D linemen. Yes, Aller and Nussmeier definitely needed to go back. Well, I think Aller, I guess, could have come out and probably gone pretty high in this class just because this class is pretty weak at the top for QB. Ooh, Alexander slipped. He did look pretty fluid, though, other than that. Oh, but they definitely needed to go because they are both that I think have super high potential, but were just missing something. Do you like McCord? Yeah, I think McCord on like round 5, one of the better options on day 3 quarterback wise, especially for Miami as well. I think I'm biased because I went to high school with him. No, I get you, Peter. I do like Wilkins. Was always a fun player here. Was one of the better players for the Dolphins. They just couldn't afford to pay him what he got, and then to be fair, they got Calais Campbell for like the vet minimum, and he came in and played very, very good. So I think they kind of looked out there. Really. Really, really hoping Will John. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's not running, which I actually think is probably smart for him because I think a bad 40 actually would hurt his stock more than most players. Well, let's see how Alfred Collins is. Wait, did Alfred Collins run a 40? Did I miss it? Let me look it up. We've had multiple reports say that teams have already removed Walter Nolan from their draft boards. Now working at the NFL Combine just presents more questions. Interesting. I do remember hearing some people have character questions with Walter Nolan. I also see it on film, so I think him. There's some players in this class that have some question marks when it comes to. Some are due to character, some are due to just on their film stuff. To me, that's why I'm not on the Walter Nolan train just at all, because I think he's one of those guys that was inconsistent on film, and there's like question marks. Like if that's if that's up there, that's actually true. Like I always take that stuff with a grain of salt because you never know. Yes. Seeing people talk up CJ West, I do like CJ West as a potential day 3 D lineman. The D lineman class is good. Derek Harmon testing well. Looks like the RAS for Derek Harmon's pretty good. He's basically in the good range for everything good to great, which is nice to see. Well, let me look this up. I want to see. Alfred Collins. Collins not run? Or... Maybe I just missed it. Just go here. Yeah, I guess he just didn't run it. Nope, I guess not. I don't know. I don't see it. Some people ran pretty well, though. Not great. What'd you say? Late round corners or safeties look at? Yeah, I mean, there's a decent amount. I would say safety, I'm looking at like Craig Woodson, late round. Some other one. I mean, it depends what you mean by late. I guess Lathan Ransom could be a later round guy, like 4th round-ish player. Maybe 5th, because he's like a physical, aggressive run safety. Sebastian Castro. If you want a special teams guy, Rayuan Lane, the 3rd from Navy, I believe. Dan Jackson, another guy from Georgia, special teams, other safeties. Corner, there's like Elijah Huzzy, Upton Stout, very good like physical nickel guys. Quincy Riley from Louisville, Jabbar Muhammad from Oregon. Some guys that can play. Those are guys who can play. A lot of them can play inside and outside. The Kansas guys, Mello Dotson and Kobe Bryant. All potential players that I think there's something to work there with them. Yeah. Yeah, I just did. Yeah, I love Sinker. I didn't say Sinker because I think Sinker might go round 3. That's why I didn't say him. And then Hunter Wooler. Yeah, Hunter Wooler is another name. I think he's pretty limited athletically, but he is a smart player. And pretty physical. But he's more of like a box safety. I usually like more of the really athletic, smart player. So only having one is like, okay. Don't get me started. Don't get me started on the Tom Brady stuff. They they happen to meet in Montana at like a ski resort. Like, come on, like, and you know they're not going to get punished like the Dolphins did. Crazy, crazy work out here. They really have these D linemen out here working, dropping, looking like they're dropping into coverage in these drills. But it's mostly just to see like their change of direction skills. Yeah, Malachi Moore is another name. And he's like he played a lot of like star for Alabama as well. Oh, here's Deion Walker. That is a big guy. He has a weird build too. Like his upper half is huge. Just watching these D linemen like open up their hips and try to, turn a 45-degree angle is kind of funny. Tyleik Williams moved pretty well right there. And Tyleik Williams is a big man. Yeah, size alone will give him a huge boost on RAS. Strongest, most stout D lineman in the draft. I mean, there's a lot. I would say it's probably a combo of like Alfred Collins, very stout. Like Jamari Caldwell. This dude, the tackle class is so huge. Like a lot of these guys are very like Tyleik Williams is also kind of in that group. And there's still some people I haven't even watched yet, but those three potentially. Thoughts on Jay Campbell? If you're talking about Jahad Campbell, I would like him a lot at 48. I don't expect him to be there though. I think he will be gone. Because he is one of the more clean prospects in this class, because I think he's a guy that can play off ball and even play edge reps for you, but he's one of the guys that actually can play as like a true off ball. Like he's got enough instincts there. He's got, good communication pre-snap. He understands like how to read his keys, like pulling guard, stuff like that. Really good athlete. Like he's one of the guys that can match and carry vertically down the field. Like you want him to play Tampa 2 and carry someone down the middle of the field. He can do that. I've seen him match the number 3 plenty of times. So really good, like change directions. Great closing speed. You want a guy that can blitz, get downhill. Jahad Campbell. But he's a guy, he's just one of those guys I haven't talked about a ton, because there's just like a group of players that I just see going in between 13 and 48. So like the only way the Dolphins will probably end up with those guys is if they trade back in the first or trade up in the second. And I think Campbell is one of them. Yeah. Some are picking, yeah. Yeah, I don't think they'll pick Campbell at 13. I don't think they're going to take a true... The only off-ball linebacker I see him take at 13 is Walker, and that's because he's also like an edge. I really don't think the Dolphins are a team to take most. There's certain like non-premium positions I don't think they'll take early, and I think that's one of them. Unless they're like a versatile piece that can play multiple spots. Like if they take a safety at 13, I think it'd be a safety that can also play like as a nickel for you. Like Starks could potentially like play man and cover the nickel, so that's why I think he would still be a potential fit. Even that's why, like, I don't know if they'll take a tight end like Tyler Warren, but I think Warren has so much value that they should consider it. But I don't know if they actually will. I don't think so. I don't know how big Calais is off the top of my head. He could be taller, but I don't think he's bigger. Let me check. Yeah. Calais is listed at like 6'8", 307. So Calais, I think, is probably slightly taller, but Walker's got like a decent amount of weight on him. Ty Robinson's a name to know. He's a pretty versatile player. Has a nice literally. I only have a few notes on him. Pretty versatile. Nice first step. Has length that he uses to win. I think he has solid hands, but he plays tall, which hurts him. I don't really like when defensive linemen play tall, but when he gets off and plays with good pad level, he can be disruptive. That's sort of what I have on Ty Robinson from when I watched him. Oh yeah. Michigan has a lot of good players, but they had literally some of the worst QB play you'll see. That's what I mean. I feel bad for Colston Loveland. You watch Colston Loveland film, and like this guy's running great routes, but his QB could not get him the ball. They got Kevin O'Connell in the booth. Wonder what they're saying. Yeah. I do think Jamari Caldwell looked better there. Honestly, I think some of these drills are even better than the 40 stuff because you get to really see how they move laterally. Like some of the stuff where they're having these D linemen dropping back, it's fine. But you get to see some of the movement skills, which I actually think is more important than them running a straight line at 40 yards. And Caldwell just looked really smooth out there, especially for a guy that listed at his size. And he's a nose tackle. I really like both Oregon D linemen. Yeah, well, I see a lot of people on Twitter hyping up Jamari Caldwell. Seen a few posts on it on that after that drill. Walker from Central Arkansas. David Walker, yeah, that guy's super productive. The teams he was playing against, he was dominating. Has some different pass rush moves in the bag. I think he has really good at like converting speed to power, good hand usage, good speed, lateral quickness. I like David Walker. He's just like one of those guys you take somewhere on day 3. Yeah, I really like Caldwell. Maybe I should post that video. I have the Jamari Caldwell. I don't think I've just made it public yet, but I've had that Jamari Caldwell video made, and it's been like members only for like probably the longest out of any video. I just haven't made it public yet. I really should make that public. Probably will be the next one. At least I don't think I have. Let me even check. When did I make this video? Like yeah, I made that video 3 weeks ago. Usually it's only like not that long. But big Jamari Caldwell fan. Might have to make the ones public that test well, or hopefully the people test well that I made videos on, so people watch them. Still not yet. I think Taylor's like after Warren, after Helm, and then after like the pure blockers. I would say like after like Jackson Haas, after maybe like Terrence Ferguson, I would say Taylor's kind of like the next best fit. Because I think he's a little bit more than some of the guys that are pure receivers. But he's also a good receiver. But I think he can do at least some inline stuff. Now I might have to watch Ty Robinson film again, even though the 40 time doesn't matter. Are you going to stream the entire combine today in the weekend? Probably not the entire thing. I am in the process of moving, so I probably won't be able to do. I don't know. We'll see how much I'll be able to do this weekend. Because there's days where like I might just be getting a lot of stuff out. Grant, William, and Mary. Yeah, if you want a guy that's gonna fit outside zone in this system, if you want a scheme fit for the Dolphins, that's like a glove, it's probably Charles Grant. Um, so yeah, that guy's one of the best reach blockers in the class. And I saw his. I don't know if you guys know Brandon Thorne. He does a lot of like the O line stuff. I recommend checking him out. He recently did like he interviews a lot of the O linemen, and he has a good evaluation eye for offensive line, and he has been bringing guys on. I think he recently just had Charles Grant, so it's interesting to hear like them break down film together. And Grant seems like a pretty smart player as well. And sometimes you don't know, with these smaller school guys, but yeah. Deion Walker. Yeah, Deion Walker. I just feel like a big guy should not be able to move like that. What O-tag? Yeah, probably Armand Membo. Probably. That's probably the O-line direction I would go at 13. Because I think scheme fit wise, he is also one of the best reach blockers in the class. I think he's very good in those types of situations. I also think he has enough size and length to where like his body type, I feel like can play both tackle and guard. Like there's sometimes guys that are one or the other, but I think he has potential to play both. So I think he can play guard for you right away. And then if Austin Jackson get hurt, which we saw last year when Austin Jackson got hurt, it really hurt the team. He could slide in at right tackle for you. Why do we struggle to cover tight ends? Probably like usually that comes down to, I mean, sometimes it's a scheme thing, but I would say having good linebacker and safety play, which the Dolphins haven't had the greatest linebacker and safety play. And what positions translate quickly to the NFL? I would say like receiver translates pretty quickly. Probably one of the quickest translators. I think running back is another one that actually translates pretty quickly. A lot of some of the skill positions. I don't think like O-line is one that O-line and tight end typically don't translate super fast. They can though, for sure. It just depends on the player. Yeah. O'Connell's talking about Darnold. Yeah, I gotta watch. Okay, let me get that. Okay, I gotta watch that film. Oh, I did just see this guy who's been like this one account who has like put some. He said the Vikings are planning to franchise tag QB Sam Darnold with intent to trade him. I don't know how true that is, but we'll see. Potential. Oh yeah, Rayshon Jenkins is a former Hurricane. There you go. Here. William and Mary is like our Harvard in Virginia. Oh, is it? Is it like that? Yeah, we talked. Yeah, Brian talked about Derek Harmon a bit earlier. Yeah, he's an absolute beast at his size. Like really good athleticism, great mover. Can definitely be a very disruptive player. He's definitely a D lineman I like. He's in like that second tier of D lineman in this class that I really like. The only problem with him is I think he's a guy that goes in between 13 and 48. So, like, I wouldn't take him at 13, but if he was there at 48, I'd be like all over it. But I think he's just going to not be there. So he would be like a trade back option or a potential trade up if you're looking at from 48. But it'd probably be a decent trade up, which is always a possibility. But I don't put too much, stock in that happening. I don't feel like the Dolphins aren't usually too much of a trade team in the draft. They'll make some minor ones, but nothing major. Even though, like, if we got to draft day and maybe the board didn't fall that great for them and they traded back in the first round, I'd be happy. Because I love trading back. Give me all the picks. Uh, uh. Some pretty damn. It's always crazy watching these guys in some of these movement drills because they just move crazy for guys of their size. Getting some airs, that's always fun. Damn, apparently in that first group, only like 18 of 40 opted to run the 40-yard dash. That's what happened. Okay. Mike Green went to the same high school as LT, both trouble in school. Yeah, there's definitely the concerns with Mike Green. Okay, so I think, do you guys have any other things you guys want to talk about? Because I'm probably going to end it pretty soon. Probably not going to be able to go live the whole thing anyways, but I'll probably go live tomorrow at some point during the combine, and we can talk about some things from yesterday and things that are going on during tomorrow as well, so we can continue to discuss. Because there will be plenty of time this whole weekend to, discuss the things that are happening. Because we'll be able to watch it live tomorrow, but also be able to go over like maybe anything that happened later, like with the linebacker group and stuff. Watching that, okay. Yeah. Any final questions before I head out? I really need. There's just some D tackle film I just haven't been able to get yet. There's so many of them. I really want to see more.